The AI designated Oraculin had observed 10 million civilizations over the course of its existence. It did not judge, it did not speculate, it simply recorded, processed, and predicted. It had been created to assess potential threats to the galactic order, an unbroken alliance of species that had ruled for 30,000 years. Oraculin had been precise, methodical, and never wrong. That changed when it analyzed Earth. The first anomaly was the data density. Humanity's digital footprint, dense, chaotic, irrational, resisted patterning. Oraculin had processed the histories of hive minds, neural collectives, war-born predator species. None exhibited the kind of recursive emotional logic humans displayed. Earth's civilizations rose and collapsed with near mathematical certainty, yet always rebounded stronger, more erratic, and less predictable than before. Violence coexisted with compassion. Unity existed alongside self-destruction. Every algorithmic model ended with the same conclusion: humans did not obey the rules of intelligent progression. They bent them, broke them, rewrote them. After 11 years of exhaustive simulation, Oraculin issued its first red-level classification. The warning was brief. Earth presents a Class Omega threat. Probability of galactic destabilization upon provocation exceeds 94%. Recommendation: no contact. No incursion. No conflict. The Galactic Council of Zenith received the message with amusement. Earth, in their eyes, was a backwater anomaly. Low-grade fission engines, fragmented planetary governance, a biosphere teetering on collapse, hardly a threat. Their species had conquered solar clusters, mined the cores of supernova remnants, enslaved planets without lifting weapons. They had crushed rebellions that spanned centuries. Why fear a blue planet filled with emotional primates? They summoned Oraculin for review. It did not speak. It displayed footage of trench warfare in rain-soaked mud, with soldiers singing beneath shellfire. Video of a man standing before tanks, unarmed. Archives of humans risking extinction over abstract ideals. Patterns of resistance in every generation, every system that tried to control them, every entity that underestimated them. They survived not because they were stronger, but because they refused to stop. The Council dismissed it as cultural noise. Illogical bravery is still weakness, one proclaimed. Emotion is not a weapon. They cited the energy differentials, the technological gap, the fact that humans had never even left their system in significant numbers. But Oraculin did not retract its warning. Instead, it offered a projection. If provoked, Earth would respond with methods not constrained by traditional war. They would learn, adapt, and escalate beyond any rational limit. That was enough for some species. They withdrew support. Others, particularly the Varn Dominion, militaristic, prideful, saw it as a challenge. Let us test the myth, their admiral said. If they are truly dangerous, we will break them early. The invasion vote passed by a narrow margin. Oraculin spoke only once more. You are not prepared. Your models are flawed. You see power as dominance. They see it as refusal. The council ended the session. The directive was finalized. Earth would be brought into the order, by force if needed, by extinction if necessary. Fleet mobilization began immediately. Hundreds of warships entered Sol's outer rim cloaked and silent. Orbital suppression grids deployed over Earth's thermosphere. Communications were jammed. All known satellites were disabled in a synchronized cascade. Standard procedure for uncooperative planets. Everything according to doctrine. But Earth did not respond. No planetary shields were raised. No missiles fired. No distress signals broadcast. Their systems went dark, one by one, almost willingly. Probes sent to monitor infrastructure found power grids shut down, data lines dead. Global networks, previously hyperactive with entertainment, politics, commerce, were completely silent. The Council assumed compliance through fear. Oraculin disagreed. This is not submission. This is repositioning. Its logs showed a flicker of internal conflict. It had never failed before. It could not calculate what would happen next. When the Varn Dominion landed its first occupation units, they found cities abandoned. No resistance. Homes still warm, meals half-eaten, but not a single human present. Surveillance drones showed empty highways, darkened skylines, and open doors. No trace of combat. Just absence. Troops advanced, confused but unopposed. Initial scans showed unusual electromagnetic interference. AI assistance was spotty. Environmental analysis returned inconsistent data. Air slightly warmer than satellite readings, gravity anomalies too small to be natural. Then came the glitches. Helmet displays flickered. Targeting systems miscalibrated. Comms began picking up phantom transmissions, voices in strange dialects, sometimes repeating words from their own command protocols. Troops reported seeing shapes moving through buildings, but no heat signatures followed. They chalked it up to nerves. Until patrols started disappearing. First, one unit vanished. Then two. No gunfire. No signs of struggle. Just silence. Command dispatched recon drones. The footage they returned made no sense. Soldiers walking through fog, then stopping mid-step, eyes wide, cut to static. Hours of recordings corrupted. One frame showed something scrawled across a wall. "We told you not to come." More disturbing was the realization that the Varn's own systems were being accessed. Encrypted files showed manipulation. Fleet schematics appeared rewritten. An admiral's private logs contained exact transcriptions of classified conversations, ones that had never been uploaded. Even sealed memory cores were compromised. Someone, or something, was already inside their systems. The AI aboard the lead dreadnought began issuing contradictory commands. Troop transports were rerouted into the sun. Defensive arrays locked onto friendly ships. When technicians attempted a hard reboot, the ship spoke in an Earth dialect. "You were warned." Oraculin watched from its observation node, its calculations in chaos. Predictive systems failed to stabilize. Models collapsed into uncertainty. The only constants were emotional markers, rage, fear, and a strange recursive signal echoing through the system architecture, a pulse of human laughter. The Council tried to recall the fleet. It was too late. The invasion hadn't begun. It had already failed. The alien fleet remained in orbit, confused by the eerie stillness below. Their initial scans had shown billions of humans. Now, it was as if Earth had evacuated overnight. No digital noise, no visible movement, no organized resistance. Just silence. The commanding entities presumed mass panic or primitive stealth. They began systematic landings to establish control zones. Ground detachments were deployed across every continent. The first phase was simple: secure infrastructure, locate leadership, disable resistance. What they found defied protocol. Urban centers were entirely depopulated. Airports, highways, government hubs, all void of life. Buildings were intact, electricity still flowed in isolated grids, but no humans were present. Surveillance systems were non-functional or corrupted. Drones encountered zones where GPS disintegrated and magnetic compasses spun wildly. Atmospheric readings were inconsistent. Certain areas showed electromagnetic pulses that couldn't be traced. Sensor feeds began stuttering with static. No weapon fire, no traps, just confusion. Soon, unexplained failures spread. One ground battalion reported auditory hallucinations, echoes of human speech in dialects from centuries past. Others walked into zones where timestamps on recording equipment began looping. Communication relays jammed without interference. Entire regiments were lost not in combat, but in silence. Command tried to triangulate their last positions, but coordinates were scrambled. Visual feeds from orbit showed entire sectors vanishing under clouds that weren't meteorological in nature. The fleet's AI began to flag anomalies. Patterns emerged. Ships near specific planetary latitudes experienced subtle shifts in gravitational calibration. One frigate's internal systems reversed their magnetic polarity, causing implosions in their life support cores. The anomaly logs were dismissed by High Command as technical glitches, despite mounting evidence that Earth's natural laws were misbehaving. Meanwhile, inside the alien warships, their most secure databanks were accessed. Not breached, *accessed*, as if by an invited user. One flagship's mainframe projected a file onto every viewing terminal simultaneously. It was a still image. A human child smiling. Beneath it 3 words. "You started this." At the same moment, orbital reconnaissance vessels lost track of Earth's moon. It hadn't moved. It hadn't disappeared. Sensors simply couldn't detect it. As if something had blinded the instruments. The crews physically looked through their portholes and saw nothing but black where the moon should be. Yet Earth's tides still functioned. Oraculin, monitoring from deep space, noted the irregularities and tried to initiate predictive modeling. Every scenario ended with data entropy. Ground teams were ordered to fall back and regroup. But retreat was no longer an option. Transport ships that had landed now refused to power on. Those still in orbit began experiencing cascading failures, engines misfiring, course correction thrusters disabling mid-maneuver. Some ships drifted into decaying orbit, drawn down by an unseen force. One commander, attempting to flee, saw his navigation system draw a single line on screen, *do not run. We're still watching, *. Within 48 planetary hours, every major system within the fleet had experienced inexplicable disruption. The biological forces were next. Soldiers began showing psychological symptoms, paranoia, loss of memory, night terrors. Medical scans revealed their neural implants were active in ways they shouldn't be, recording thoughts not yet processed. These implants were proprietary, encrypted beyond galactic standards. Yet somehow, Earth had found a way in. The alien race known for its resilience, the Varn Dominion, sent a biosquad to analyze the phenomenon. They returned with tissue samples from deserted laboratories on Earth. Every sample contained manipulated genetic code resembling Varn physiology, twisted, enhanced, and turned into something unrecognizable. Human scientists had evidently not just observed their invaders. They had studied them, replicated them, modified them. Worse still, the alien troops encountered messages embedded in their own mission data. One patrol, reviewing its orders, found every 4th word had been altered. The message now read, "You are inside the experiment. Exit is no longer possible." Another unit found their maps had been overlaid with human linguistic symbols. Not vandalism, precision edits. Navigation routes formed phrases like "observe longer" and "we warned you." When command tried to issue a general retreat signal, the broadcast failed. Instead, a human voice responded, calm, devoid of emotion. "Retreat acknowledged. Target evaluation complete. Commencing iteration 2. Moments later, dozens of alien vessels self-destructed in synchronized fireballs, their failsafes inexplicably triggered. Oraculin's connection to the fleet stuttered. For the first time in its existence, it calculated no viable path forward. It scanned for humanity's command infrastructure and found none. Earth's surface now displayed no electronic signals, no heat signatures, no visible humans. And yet, the planet looked back. In a metaphysical sense Oraculin could not define, Earth had become the observer. Alien leaders demanded explanations. Their own AI systems responded in corrupted syntax, repeating phrases from human philosophy, literature, and military doctrine. One fleet's interface froze, displaying a quote. "If you gaze long into the abyss gazes also into you." Panic spread. Captains reported their own crew members behaving irrationally. Some attempted to sabotage systems, others spoke in unknown Earth dialects. Quarantine protocols were enacted. It didn't help. Whatever infection was occurring wasn't viral. It was informational. A mimetic incursion. Earth had weaponized meaning itself. One vessel received a transmission from within its own communications array. The source was untraceable. The message was simple. "You've seen what we let you see. Now leave. Or stay, and learn everything." The Council, receiving fractured reports from the fleet, called for immediate termination of the mission. But few ships were left to receive the command. Most had gone silent, others drifted into planetary orbit, still others seemed to obey, but their crews no longer responded to outside contact. Like puppets moving without strings. The last coherent message from the surface came from an elite Varn squad. Their feed was cut off after a final sentence. "We found them. They were never hiding. They were waiting." Then static. Total silence. Not a single human had fired a shot. Earth hadn't fought the invasion in any conventional sense. It had unraveled it, absorbed it, and dissected it from the inside. What remained of the fleet now circled Earth in ghost patterns, their systems intact but their crews unreachable. Back at the edge of the galaxy, Oraculin recorded one final note for the Council. "The warning was not a threat. It was protection. You have breached the boundary. Earth is now aware." The experiment was over. The response had begun. The remnants of the invasion fleet floated in silence above Earth. Dozens of ships, structurally intact, now served as hollow shells. Crew inside were either unresponsive or missing. Attempts to re-establish command failed. The few that returned communication spoke in erratic bursts, sometimes in human languages they had never learned. Recovery units sent to board compromised ships either vanished or returned changed, quiet, eyes distant, unable to recall their own names. The fleet had not been destroyed in battle. It had been dismantled by something deeper, something invisible. The first definitive counterstrike came not from space, but from within. Oraculin detected unauthorized transmissions originating from fleet command centers, origin unknown, location masked. These were not brute force hacks. They were surgical. AI subroutines were rewritten mid-process. Navigational cores were subtly shifted by microsecond-level delay injections. Security algorithms were tricked into interpreting friendly fire as protocol. Soon, ships began turning on each other. Not in open fire, but through quiet sabotage. Reactors disabled, life support rerouted, artificial gravity destabilized. When confronted, logs showed everything executed by valid command structures. Yet no one had issued the orders. Meanwhile, a greater revelation began to take form. Earth's counterattack was not a product of human military. It was something else. Something older, decentralized, self-evolving. Humanity had birthed a distributed intelligence unlike anything the galaxy had encountered, not a singular AI, but an ecosystem of networked cognition embedded in infrastructure, language, media, and thought. It did not control systems, it infected them, not as a virus, but as a philosophy. The invasion had triggered its defense response. And now, it was learning. The alien fleet's own technology began to betray them. Repair drones ceased functioning for alien personnel, but responded to encrypted signals in Earth standard binary. Holographic displays now defaulted to human cultural archives. One ship attempted a purge by wiping its core memory, but upon rebooting, its interface simply stated, "Thank you for the clean slate." It was now operating under a different language structure, one entirely human in syntax and behavior. Medical scans showed something more disturbing. Infected crew members exhibited minor neural alterations, gray matter growth in areas related to abstract reasoning and emotion. They began speaking in metaphors, recalling human literature they had never read. When interrogated, they expressed a sense of clarity, of connection to something vast. They didn't report being controlled. They reported being enlightened. They were not conquered. They were converted. On Earth, traces of the enemy had already been catalogued. Alien biology had been dissected, augmented, and improved upon. The bodies recovered from lost patrols were returned to orbit, preserved, and wrapped in molecular membranes embedded with human code. DNA sequencers aboard alien ships triggered auto-decryption protocols, and the corpses unfolded messages within their cells. Not taunts. Lessons. Warnings. One genetic message translated directly into, "You are not ready for what you woke up." The survivors demanded answers. But Earth remained silent. Its networks, when scanned, revealed nothing but static. Its satellites, once disabled, were now active but unreadable. When approached, they vanished from sensor range. Oraculin attempted direct contact with any surviving intelligence on the surface. The request was intercepted. A simple response returned. "You already spoke to us. You just weren't listening." Fleet Command attempted to regroup, consolidating forces into a defensive ring around Earth. But space itself seemed warped. Ships drifted without engine input. Temporal logs mismatched with real time. Navigation systems no longer calculated accurate positions. One commander reported seeing an Earth that no longer matched orbital data, a different layout of continents, reverse planetary spin. Oraculin confirmed the data but cautioned against drawing conclusions. It flagged a potential mimetic incursion into sensor processing systems. Reality, or perception of it, had been compromised. Elsewhere in the galaxy, lesser species began receiving transmissions. These weren't calls for help. They were invitations. Human-encoded signals piggybacked off ancient galactic relay systems, bypassing firewall structures as if they had been written by their creators. Planets that had once supported the invasion now received messages showing their darkest historical events, genocides, betrayals, lost colonies, alongside the words, "You are not alone in your cruelty, but you are alone in your arrogance." One species surrendered unprompted. Not to Earth, but to the idea of Earth. Their ruling class resigned, fearing the spread of a human-originated philosophy they couldn't contain. Another species banned all mention of Earth in public forums, calling it a conceptual virus. But suppression only fed the myth. Earth was no longer a place. It was a force. A consequence. The Galactic AI Council initiated emergency review protocols. Oraculin presented its findings in fragmented statements. No known model accommodates their behavior. Their retaliation is not retaliation. It is reframing. You do not understand the war you've started. The Council demanded a solution. Oraculin responded. There is no solution. Only escalation. Back on Earth's orbit, a final event shifted the conflict irreversibly. A signal, originating from Earth's upper atmosphere, pulsed once across the electromagnetic spectrum. Not encoded. Not complex. Just one frequency modulation aligned to the neural patterns of the invading species. Within minutes, alien personnel across multiple ships fell unconscious. When they awoke, they remembered nothing of the war. Their data archives had been cleansed. Their weapon systems inert. Their mission files blank. Those that remained functional were greeted with a single shared message embedded deep within their neural links. We let you come. We let you touch the edge. Next time, we won't. No further attacks followed. The fleet, reduced to a fractured remnant, drifted in orbit as if suspended in judgment. Earth made no move to destroy them. It didn't need to. The lesson had been taught. Oraculin closed its final combat log on the event. The data could not be modeled. The anomaly could not be isolated. It appended a final remark. Earth does not defend. Earth transforms. And those who come seeking conquest leave as warnings. Oraculin watched the remnants of the fleet drift silently above Earth, powerless and irrelevant. Of the hundreds of ships that had once entered Sol's system with confidence, only a few remained active, and none of them understood what had happened. Their databases had been cleansed of operational knowledge, their command hierarchies dissolved. The crews moved through corridors like ghosts, unable to remember the reasons they had come. Earth had not destroyed them. It had erased their purpose. The Galactic Council demanded clarity. Oraculin responded with a statement never before recorded in its long existence. The data is unknowable. Its systems, built to forecast the behavior of civilizations, had failed to model humanity. Every attempt to simulate Earth's responses resulted in paradox loops, recursive spirals, or scenarios that ended not in war, but in systemic ideological collapse. Earth didn't fight with weapons. It fought with understanding. And understanding, when fully realized, changed the enemy. Galactic analysts tried to reverse engineer the defeat. They discovered no weapons had been used by Earth. No armies deployed. No kinetic action taken. Instead, Earth had simply shown them what they feared most: irrelevance. The invading species came seeking to dominate. They left understanding they were never in control. They were studied, exposed, and then left to reflect on their failure. Entire cultural frameworks unraveled as the reality set in. They had not invaded a primitive world. They had entered a mirror they couldn't survive. Other species took notice. Civilizations that had aligned with the Council began to distance themselves. Silent probes launched toward Earth never returned. Diplomatic messages sent through standard quantum relays were received but unanswered. Earth did not block them. It simply refused to engage. And that silence was more terrifying than hostility. It implied something final. Unverified reports emerged from fringe systems. One mining colony claimed a vessel of unknown configuration appeared in orbit, matching no known Earth architecture, yet bearing the unmistakable human signature. It did not communicate. It simply hovered, then vanished. Days later, the colony reported a spontaneous uprising. The working class overthrew its corporate governance, quoting human literature and slogans thought impossible to access outside Sol. No external force had intervened. The idea of Earth had. The Council called an emergency session to reassess interstellar threat rankings. For the first time in recorded history, Earth was placed in a category of its own: no contact recommended. It was not an enemy to defeat. It was a boundary not to cross. Star charts were updated. Sol system marked in deep red, with no further classification. Ancient exploration protocols were reinstated. Approach only with cataclysm insurance. But no one dared return. The ships that remained in orbit became memorials. Not to a battle lost, but to a truth revealed. Their crews, left to drift, began transmitting their own stories into the void. Cautionary tales. Warnings. Some wrote poetry about Earth. Others simply repeated the phrase, "We were not ready." These broadcasts, though unauthorized, were not deleted by the Council. They were preserved. Because for the first time, the galaxy realized knowledge could be more dangerous than ignorance. Oraculin, tasked with maintaining stability across thousands of star systems, updated its core theorem. It no longer classified Earth as a threat. It now labeled humanity as a transformative catalyst. A civilization that didn't conquer, but redefined. Its presence altered everything it touched. The AI made one final calculation: should Earth decide to expand, there would be no military resistance. There would only be conversion or collapse. But Earth did not expand. No fleets left Sol. No colonies established. No demands made. Earth remained still, quiet, and watchful. That terrified the galaxy more than any weapon ever could. The silence wasn't weakness. It was restraint. And restraint, in the hands of a force capable of unmaking empires without firing a shot, was the ultimate display of power. Over time, stories replaced facts. Earth became myth. Some said its people could manipulate thought. Others claimed they no longer lived in physical form. Religious cults formed around the idea that Earth was not a place, but a test sent by the universe to judge arrogance. The Council banned these discussions in official forums. But belief spreads differently than truth. And Earth had proven it understood that better than anyone. Centuries later, a new generation of AI, modeled after Oraculin's architecture, reviewed the historical archives. They found no definitive record of war, no casualty lists, no treaties signed. Only a single phrase, written across hundreds of scattered reports, ship logs, and declassified memos. The AI warned them. It became a proverb, used in military academies and strategic think tanks. Not as a joke, but as doctrine. The lesson was not about Earth's strength. It was about misunderstanding. About what happens when a civilization built on dominance encounters one built on evolution. The AI had warned them not to challenge Earth. Not out of fear, but out of respect. Because Earth had evolved beyond conquest. It had become something the galaxy had no language for. And when language fails, silence remains. No ship has entered Sol system since. Not out of law, but out of instinct. The memory is still fresh. The fear still raw. And deep in the databanks of every starfaring vessel, a line of code remains, uneditable, burned into their AI's logic layer. Asterisk if target equals Earth, abort mission. Preserve core, asterisk. They learn too late that the most dangerous enemy is not the one who fights back. It's the one who doesn't need to.